All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. On the internet, as always, I feel this strange need to keep telling people that, although everyone knows it because everyone's in the same situation where, you can't do in-person interviews right now. But in this case, you're not even in Manitoba at the moment, right? So this kind of works out all right, this whole Zoom setup. So I think
Yeah.
we can get into where you are and what you're doing there in a minute. But I think to start this off, the best way to do it would be for you to introduce yourself and just give a bit of background about what you do musically.
For sure. My name's Dane Bjornson. I'm a singer-songwriter, originally from Winnipeg. And I do kind of pop rock, a little bit of alternative-inspired music. I've been playing since I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I
Yeah.
started gigging from a young age. And ever since then, I've been lucky enough to perform on some pretty cool stages in my life. And here
Cool.
we are today.
And so you're in Alberta right now, right?
Yeah, I'm in Edmonton. I'm here for a music degree at MacEwan University.
Okay, but have you been able to travel much between there and Winnipeg during this whole 6 or 7 months of chaos?
Uh, as soon as the lockdown hit, I was here
Yeah,
taking the degree, and I had to abort ship a little bit early. Parents came and picked me up
yeah,
around March, but since then, I was basically home in Winnipeg for the whole summer, and then came back here in September, and now I believe it's about a week. My parents are like, "You're not flying during a pandemic," so they're gonna come and make the drive out on the 16 to come get me in about a week. But
oh, right on.
it hasn't been too much back and forth, just the two moves here.
Cool. Well, and I know you have a new record, and I'm sure you want to talk about that. But the idea that you started playing music as a small child is fascinating, and so I think maybe that's a good sort of starting point for getting into what it is you do, because a lot of people start playing in bands young. Like I was in my first band in grade 7, but I mean you're way beyond that in terms of how early you got started. So how did this even begin for you? Because you're still pretty young now, I imagine, right?
Yeah. I'm turning 21 next year.
Yeah,
That's even a weird thing for me to say. But yeah, I guess I started. I was earliest music memories. I was 3 years old, and then on the radio it was Superman by Five for Fighting. You know the
okay.
I'm more than a bird, and
Yeah,
that
yeah,
song would
yeah.
play on the radio all the time. And then it would stop, and then I'd be like, "Mom, Dad, play it again. What are you doing? I love that song." They're like, "We can't."
It's the
Um,
radio, yeah.
yeah, right. And then fast forward to, I think I was 6 or 7. I started taking piano lessons. A few years later, it was guitar lessons. Next
Okay.
thing you know, I start singing. I think the first couple cover tunes were more kind of punk rock. "Welcome to My Life" by Simple Plan, "Lips of an Angel" by Hinder, which was a weird one for like a 9-year-old to be
Yes, for
singing.
sure, yeah.
But yeah, and then I started getting the casual gig here and there, and I guess a big part of my life for a little bit, ages like 11 to 14, 15, was being part of this television show called The Next Star and the Next Star Supergroup,
Okay.
which was for like Canadian children's television, YTV, and I got to be in a boy band for a little
Nice.
bit with that, which was cool.
Yeah, it would be a fun
But
experience anyway, I bet. Yeah.
oh yeah, but yeah, and then I've just kind of been playing ever since, stages here and there, and now I'm pursuing it post-secondary, and still loving it.
Well, you mentioned a couple minutes ago about the casual gigs as a 9-year-old. What does that look like? What's a casual gig for
Yeah,
someone who's
that's
in
true.
elementary school?
I guess it's that's where the momager comes in, right?
Sure,
Like my
sure,
mom's
yeah.
still kind of knowing people and saying, "Oh well, my kid plays stuff." I think my first official gig was it was like some sort of family day weekend event that happened at the Greendale Community Center in
Okay.
like South St. Vital. And then from there, lots of busking at the Forks as well. So that would come in, and then just whenever I could submit stuff for Manitoba Music, playing Canada Day events sometimes. Lots of live music would always happen in Gimli, Manitoba as
Sure.
well. And Gimli is where I have a lot of family, did a lot of growing up there.
Couldn't have guessed
Uh,
by the last name, yeah.
yeah, Dane Jonas Bjornson, right?
Yeah.
It's just
It sounds very Gimli, yes, yeah.
two J's, but you don't really pronounce any of them
Right,
the
yeah.
way you think, right?
Yeah.
No, I've always thought of that. Dane Jonas. Jonas is my middle name. It's like, oh, what if I just like went by Dane Jonas and just like wrote off that Jonas Brothers wave?
Right, yeah. Well, you were in a boy band, right?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. So,
Um,
so after all that, I mean, like, the experience as a kid, the experience doing the boy band thing, being on TV, all of that. What, like where do you think you are musically now at your age? Like you said, you're turning 21. What kind of music inspires you at this point, and how do you define the type of stuff you're making now?
It's I gotta say, most recently it's started to be all over the place. For a while, I just sort of stayed in my bubble of, oh, I love pop rock. I love
Sure.
Canadian pop rock specifically. Like Mariana's Trench was a big influence on me
Okay.
growing up. Lots of Simple Plan, Favor Drive, Sum 41. It was a lot of that stuff. And then within the past year, I've just been getting into a lot of like R&B and funk bands like New York-based band Lawrence is a fantastic band where
Okay.
it's just like the funkiest. I don't know. Like I was never into e-piano as a sound, and now I love e-piano.
Yeah.
That lots of like horn arrangements and stuff. I was lucky on the record to have Ben Hill and Fred Warner of the Apollo Suns to play some horns on
Cool.
a few of the
Great band.
tunes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so had them play, and yeah, so I guess I'd like to say that I'm sticking to my roots and being like pop rock, but I'm starting to get a lot of like funk R&B
Okay.
influence, I think, in my writing now.
And do you think that is it deliberate, or is it just sort of seeping in there in the background and you notice it later?
It's definitely seeping in, but I think I just gotta steer the car into it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause I love that sound, and anytime I get those, anytime I hear those progressions just seep their way into my writing, I'm like, oh, okay, let's keep playing. You know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's cool. So, I mean, often when I'm doing the show, I ask people kind of where they come from in the local music scene. Obviously, yours is very different because you started again doing this as a kid, but I do it mainly to kind of place people in my own head because, over the course of doing this podcast, I've talked to people who are 18 and people who are 70 and everywhere in between. And sort of, so I always try to figure out where someone's coming from. Like, were there local bands that when you were growing up, maybe not when you were 9, but, in your teen years or whatever, that really inspired you or got you wanting to do this music thing more? Like, as far
Yeah,
as Manitoba artists.
yeah. It was from a very young age. My parents would take us to the JP Ho holiday show
Okay, cool, cool.
all,
Yeah.
all the time. Back when I think it was still in the Park Theater, and then the West End later, and then of course like moving to the Burton Cummings in most recent years. But JP Ho has always been like a kind of a cool like, oh, like look at that guy. He's from where we're from. What?
Right, right.
So it started with like JP Ho bands like Quincy as well,
Sure. Yeah.
um, and then in most recent years, or no, I guess even still back in the day, I don't know. I'd released like a project when I was 12, which was a little crazy. It was an
It
EP
is, yeah.
called Lucky Day. I released it. It was produced by Aaron Cheddarvetti,
Okay.
who I think is Toronto based now. But he's from Winnipeg, and on that on that release party, I was able to get before they were the Landreth Bros. I had Joey and Dave like playing my
Cool.
band, and that was also something that was really cool when the Landreth Bros really started to like take off.
Yeah, they got
Uh,
huge, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then I was like, man, Aaron like got them in my band when I was 12. Like I didn't know how lucky I was back then, you know.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and then of course in the most recent years it's been the Middle Coast, who of course are now Field Guide, Liam Duncan, and Roman Clark.
Right.
And I've just been loving all their stuff. Ariel Posen I listen to a lot, and Begonia, yeah.
Cool, cool.
But local music, Winnipeg music, it's what makes me feel at home when I'm 13-hour drive away.
Yeah, sure, sure. Does being kind of distant from Winnipeg now, does it give you a different perspective on Winnipeg's music scene? I mean, I know you're here in the middle of a pandemic, so obviously your chances to go out and explore the scene where you are now are kind of limited. But
Mhm.
I mean, what does looking at Winnipeg's music scene from a distance, what does it look like?
It's easy to see how thriving it is. I'm here in Edmonton, and I'm in the scene a little bit here,
Yeah,
but it feels like and I'm not. I wish I could say I was just biased and I was just saying this, but it really feels like Winnipeg just like has it going on. I think there's just more hangout spots, more venues.
yeah,
And the thing is, I don't even know about all of them, but like Handsome Daughter, the Goodwill, like all those places. Like I feel like Edmonton needs more of those.
sure,
But yeah, it's and it can be hard to sort of I think stay relevant when you're so far away as well, which of course has I guess been my uh, the way I've used the pandemic as an advantage because everyone's kind of being online anyway. So it's
Yeah,
like
you're
everyone's
stuck. Yeah.
online, um, and you can feel like you're home from anywhere at this point.
Does I mean those songs you wrote when you were 12 when you put out that album? Did, when you listen back to that, what is that like? Well, I mean, you're in terms of age, you're distant from that, but does it feel like? I mean, can you hear kind of kernels of your early songwriting in there that have maybe eventually grown to where you are now?
Uh, it's been a while since I've like taken a listen to it. I gotta say, um, but there was a lot of co-writers on that album as
Well, you
well.
were
Lots
12.
of
It makes
guys.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
like what did I know?
Yeah. Yeah.
but there was lots of guys. I guess other music mentors. I'm surprised I didn't mention them earlier. The guys of the Pushing Daisies,
Okay.
James Roth, who's in Amadians now, uh, as well as Roland Cote, Curtis Paul. All those guys helped me tons with that writing, and I was sort of like the music that they played as well. Like I would listen to and try to emulate that as well. Like it was just good like alt rock.
Sure.
I remember the first time hearing them was they did this like crazy 24-hour show. It was to raise money for something, but it was like in 2000, 2009, 2010. And they did this show of 24 hours straight just outside the gas station theater. Um, and then
I think I remember that. I remember.
yeah,
I didn't watch it, but I remember hearing
yeah.
about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Who else was there? I think like Flo was there.
Okay.
Floor 13. It was a wild show. Um,
And you would have been what, like 10, 9?
I was actually this is kind of a funny story that I don't think I've ever told this one, but
Okay.
yeah, I was 10 or 9. Roland Cote, singer of the Pushing Daisies, who like I hadn't like met personally, so I was just looking at him as the guy on stage, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sitting near the sound booth because I think my dad's talking to the guy running the show, and then Roland at this point he like kind of puts a thumbs up. He goes like this,
Yeah.
and he's of course like pointing at his monitor like, I could use more voice or whatever. But I was just like, me?
Thumbs up.
Hey,
Yeah.
like, I just kind of gave the thumbs up back to him. I don't even think I've told him that story.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, it's but of course then like shortly after that was when it was like, oh hey, like uh I'm a aspiring musician, I want to write. And then we
Yeah.
wrote songs, and they were really great about helping me write songs about stuff that I knew. It was songs about, oh, I can't wait for the weekend, like screw school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, you know, uh, that EP was called Lucky Day. There's a song called Lucky Day, just like, hey, things are going great, and I'm gonna sing about it.
Yeah. Well,
But
my own kids are 7 and 11 years old, so I can completely imagine the type of subject matter that that you would have been writing about at the time for sure. Like it's so. I
yeah,
mean, just like you have the whole career behind you at your young age. You have this whole career behind you of having performed for like a decade, basically, right? I mean, so have you felt the need now that you're an adult, now that you've released new music, have you felt the need to reinvent yourself? Like, have you felt the need to say this is who I am as an adult performer versus, oh, this is the kid who was on stage that people might remember
yeah.
from,
And not to say that I ever went through like that child star
Yeah,
trauma
no, I wasn't
or
implying that, but
anything.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh no. But like it definitely felt like after the Days on the Next Star, and then sort of in between like the Next Star and 2020, like this
yeah,
year, I'd released like a few little just like completely independent projects, a couple like Christmas slash holiday theme songs,
sure,
and then like this one kind of love song I wrote to Winnipeg. In 2018, it was called the 204, and I rapped in the second verse, like and not to say that that wasn't on brand, but it wasn't me being like as authentic as I feel like I could be.
okay,
um and I've always been about like not taking myself too seriously, but at the same time I wanted to have just sort of like I don't know, just like a piece of art truly from me, like from my heart, out into the world, and that's kind of what this record was, and that's why I felt like I just had to get it out. I was like, I've written these songs. They're slightly more, I guess, mature themes, while at the same time staying under that kind of pop, friendly teen umbrella,
sure,
but
yeah,
but I felt like this would have been like if I were to establish one point in my life where it's like, oh, when do you feel like you went for a rebrand or like reinvented yourself? Like it was during this album release.
Okay. Okay. So I mean, I know we touched on this earlier, but the pandemic's in full swing right now. I know
Yeah,
Alberta's
totally.
bad, as is Manitoba. And I mean, so when did the album actually come out? Like, it was fairly recently, right?
Yeah, it was November 27th.
So that's, yeah, I mean, what was that like experience of putting out this record, which again is sort of like, this is you as an adult, your genuine kind of expression of where you are now, and then it's happening in the middle of this weirdest time in anyone's lives who's alive right now, right? So what was that experience like?
Sam, I want to put on a CD release party so
I
badly.
believe it. Yeah.
You know, like I want to just find a budget somewhere and hire the horns, hire the strings, hire the choir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, it's been definitely difficult. I mean, I forget what it was like to release a full album before like pre-pandemic, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because you were
Um,
12 last time it happened,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Right? Like
Yeah.
my parents were doing the Photoshop job for the posters and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's I will say the amount of like support and love that I've seen online for it has been just overwhelming and lovely.
That's
And
awesome.
I had a Snapchat from a friend today where he was just like listening to the title track, wondering. He was like, "I love that string sound. How did you get that string sound?" He's in the recording major with me. I was like, "Oh well,
Oh, cool.
I hired some players. Like those are as real as it gets, real
Yeah. Yeah.
strings." But yeah, it sucks that I can't be out there and performing, but yeah, the support and everything that I've seen, all the things that people have been saying have been very lovely about it. So
That's
that's been
good.
nice.
Yeah, it's a good thing to happen, I guess, and it's such an uncertain time, right? At least you
Yeah.
know people are digging the record and they're listening to it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah. So where do you go from here, though? I mean, like, you have this album out. People are liking it. People are listening to it. You're getting good feedback. But we're in a weird situation where no one knows when this is going to end, when shows are going to happen again, when anything's going to happen again, really.
Yeah.
And so, like, what's sort of the next step for you then with this album? Because you don't know when you can have a release show.
Hmm.
How are you? You have this body of work that's out now. I don't want to say how are you promoting it, but how are you sort of, making sure that it gets to the right ears in the sense of, developing what your audience is now versus your audience as a child performer, right?
Hmm. Um, I've definitely got like a few plans to just kind of keep the hype kind of going. I've got I bought a green screen a few
Okay.
months ago,
Nice. Nice.
and the second single off the record was called "Competition," which is just kind of like it. It was like my one like slightly petty breakup song. I was
Okay.
like, if Charlie Puth was gonna write a petty breakup song, how would he write it? And I tried to emulate as much Charlie Puth in that song as I could. But at the same time, it's like still lighthearted. You can kind of walk to the song. It's one of those tunes. But it is, yeah, with that green screen. I'm gonna just make some sort of ridiculous music video out of it.
Cool.
And I think, and that'll be just a nice way to kind of have like another wave of like social media stuff and like
Yeah.
everything to share. Making a ridiculous music video, as well as I don't know. I've got like some good like home recording stuff. I want to do some sort of like demos EP where I take like two or three of the tunes and like strip them down a little bit more,
Cool.
and then release that sometime next year. Be
Cool.
nice. Just
So you
just
still
to
have
keep.
stuff churning out. There's always,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. There's stuff that can still come of it, and I'm really excited to work on those projects and get that out there.
Cool.
Again, like editing with a green screen is so much fun.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So, you know, the whole part about marketing yourself and selling yourself basically. I mean, online thankfully is the way that people are doing that the most right now, and that's kind of all anyone has because you can't go put posters in a pole without wearing a mask and but whatever. But so I mean, I think you might have an advantage in the sense that you've been doing this for a lot longer than most of your peers because you were doing it as a kid, and also you're growing up in a world where internet self promotion is the way people communicate. I mean, like, I haven't played in a band in forever, but I'm 38, so I'm quite a bit older than you. And when I was starting in bands as a teenager, like there was no internet that anyone the way we know it now, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
mean, I'm kind of jealous actually of kind of the ability that you have and people in your generation have too, to be able to just get out there and record something and put it online immediately and send it to people all around the world immediately. And so I imagine you must have, you know, maybe a leg up on some older artists in the sense that you have come up in this world and you probably have a lot of firsthand experience.
Yeah, it's something that I've really enjoyed about the whole DIY of it all is
Yeah.
like I think this microphone I bought like when I was 14 or something, 15, and it was because one of my favorite YouTubers had it.
Okay.
Um,
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, just stuff like that. I was like, green and gold microphone. What is it? And then they were like AKG C12 or like that super like expensive um discontinued mic. But then I found out the model of this one, and then I bought it. My parents got me my interface for
Cool.
Christmas at you know, and then with that it was just plug and play. How do things work? And it was just kind of seeing things online. How does that work? Make it happen. And it's been the same thing with like my music production as it has been like my video production as
Yeah.
well. And that's something that I've been pretty proud of, and like that whole progression. And that's why I like to, I don't really private anything on my YouTube channel. There's stuff that I'm like not super proud of, but I don't know, for other people that want to kind of see the progression of it all too,
Yeah.
it's good to leave up there. That's actually something that Heidi Corte, my vocal coach from back home, who was on this show.
She
How
was.
long?
Yeah.
A few
Uh,
weeks ago?
it's a few weeks ago. Yeah. I put out two a week. So it seems like it's been a while ago, but it wasn't that
Yeah.
long ago. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but she says it's like, you know, whenever I want to show kids progression, my students progression, I go to your YouTube channel because you know you have the videos back in the day where you were still rocking a lisp and stuff like that, you know. But yeah, that's why I just sort of keep it all up there. YouTube has been a great tool for me
Yeah.
just to learn how to do all that production, and then of course nowadays it's TikTok, and that's something that I've very recently been extremely active on.
Okay. Okay.
And I don't know, I'm riding off the wave of kind of looking like Drake Bell from Drake and Josh, and TikTok seems to be loving that.
See, I don't even know. I don't even know what that is, but I assume that's something popular.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Drake Bell, was he in anything before
I'm
that? I
probably
don't
not
know.
gonna know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But
That's
yeah, no,
okay.
it's. But I mean, like, I definitely respect that though. The idea of keeping everything and not immediately hiding something when you think you've done something better, because one of the biggest things that the reasons that I support that is with all my bands too. Everything I've ever had recorded or any photos taken or videos, I put them all online and they're all still there. Not all of them are great. Some of them are just absolutely brutal. But I think that like growing up when there wasn't an internet and all these great recordings of bands that people had on VHS or whatever or on tape are just gone because no one bothered to digitize them or put them online. And I think that now there's a perfect opportunity for so many people to just record everything and have it all available, because I can't go back and find, a bunch of demos by some band I liked in 95 unless I have the tape. And I probably do have the tape because I hoard it, but but you know what I mean, right? Like it's not easily accessible, and that sucks. And it just seems like, when I see bands taking stuff down, it's like, no, you should keep that, because someone who maybe missed you the first time around and didn't see you live or didn't hear that when it first came out, they might want to check it out 20 years from now. And if it's still floating around online, there's that kind of history of the local music scene that people can kind of cobble together. And I think it's important to have that stuff out there.
And that's also what I love about this show, by the way. Like the fact that the your main descriptor is like, oh, it's just like a musical archive for local music in Winnipeg. I was like, I love that.
That's
Like
kind of the
that
point.
is,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I love it. But it also has me thinking about pretty recently. This will be a pretty Winnipeg niche story, but growing up, we always called him the Burning Ring of Fire guy.
Okay.
And I
Yeah. I know
think
you
you
take.
might know what
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
And then
Eric. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and Eric, and that was
Yeah.
his name that I learned very recently when I
Yeah.
saw some sort of global segment about him from a couple of years ago. But I learned he was Eric the Great, and I
Yeah.
learned that he was like a lead singer of a band, and I tried to look for that band and like look for their music, and I think I found like one video,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And the rest is just
but
gone forever, right?
yeah, I know, and I'm thinking, what a shame. Like I was really digging like the one tune that I heard. Where's the rest of that record? You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And now a band in the same position can put everything online, and hopefully if they leave it there, it can stay there and be found and discovered by the next generation who might be interested in it, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's I definitely respect that, because I do know a lot of artists who just take stuff down immediately. They feel like they've done a better version, and it's just I want to like shake them. No, stop. This is there's a
I
value to
know.
this. There's some kind of value to this, whether you see it or not right now. Like,
Yeah, for real, for real. Yeah, well, and you talk about like the next generation discovering it, and this is a very funny story, and it has to do with TikTok.
Okay.
But the band Simple Plan,
Yeah.
who had released the song "I'm Just a Kid" in what
Okay.
2002, um, and it was big at the time, and of course I knew it as a Simple Plan fan growing up, but there was a TikTok challenge that became very relevant using their song, where like people would like get into the pose, recreate the child photo,
Okay.
and then they would like flash to the child photo on the "I'm just a kid" chorus. And because of that TikTok challenge, 18 years later, the single goes like platinum in the states.
That's crazy.
I know just the way that the internet, technology, social media works.
Yeah.
It's such a great way to share music and let music be heard.
Well, maybe a question to jump off that is because everyone and their dog can release music and put it online, which I think is fantastic. But there's so many people putting stuff out there. There's so much content out there. How do you get yourself heard above the crowd of everyone else doing this? And not to say that everyone else is doing the exact same thing as you, or that it's better or worse, but just like it's a massive amount of people producing music is like, how does someone find you, right? Like, how do you make yourself heard
Hmm.
above the noise?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I've thought about very actively. You know, because I'm not the only Caucasian 20-year-old male
No, no, definitely
singer
not. Yeah,
songwriter. There's
yeah,
there's very many of us. But I think that I'll have there's definitely a bit of a step up with just having done it for so long, as well as the whole um, Next Star stuff and YTV.
yeah. Sure,
Uh,
sure.
but I think nowadays it's so much about personality and the connection and people wanting to know who you are, and that's why daily vloggers on YouTube are so successful.
Yeah,
It's
definitely, definitely.
because people are invested in you, um, as if it's like a story, as if it's some sort of TV show almost.
Yeah,
Is how social media makes it seem, at least. So I think making yourself as accessible as you can, and kind of constantly promoting or constantly being on social media, which can also be so evil at the same time, because I've been thinking about taking like a social media um, break for like a month or something, just to see what it would do for me. But then it's like, oh no, you released an album, so you
you got
you
to be on
can't
there.
do
Yeah,
that. Gotta be talking about it.
yeah.
But
Do you think
yeah,
that
it's just
Sorry, go ahead.
it's just constant creation, and being consistent on social media, I think is how that works.
Well, I think you're right about that, and about the fact that like people do become sort of not obsessed, but they get really, really into people's lives on social media, especially with that YouTube stuff, right? They're watching
Hmm.
someone every single day for years, and they've developed this connection, and that's obviously a way artists do it as well. But do you feel like it? Is there a chance of kind of giving away some of the mystique of being a creative person when everything you do is when you're constantly speaking to the audience, right? Because I mean,
Hmm.
you go back and listen to a record from even 20 years ago, and unless you're really digging around for interviews with the artists, you don't know too much about them. You try to figure out what the words mean, and then you can come up with your own ideas based on that, or print interviews and stuff. But there's definitely kind of a detachment from the artist and the audience. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think there's an argument for either way, but
Yeah.
I feel like the way people are doing it now is first of all, it's great, and I understand completely why people are choosing to kind of be super, super involved with the crowd, on a one-to-one level, even online. But I don't know. I always wonder if there's a chance of any mystique of being like an artist gets sucked out of it.
And I feel like that's what it used to be, at least. Like, again, like you said, yeah, social media didn't exist. Who knows what Led Zeppelin was doing after
Right. Right.
their performances? They weren't live streaming on Instagram.
Yeah. They
But
would be now, though, right? If they were
oh,
around now, they would be. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And it's been cool, sort of following those bands that are still super active nowadays, and then the bands or that are still super active now, that like started in like the early 2000s.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's a lot of the bands that I grew up listening to. Like Mariana's Trench, for instance. I know, like 2006, I think their debut record came out,
Okay.
and there's not a ton on it. There's like some things on social media, maybe a couple of YouTube videos, but now like they just released a new album last year, and they have a documentary about it.
Right. Right. Because you can do that now and just put it online, and there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think it's uh, important to keep a mystique for sure. And I know Josh Ramsey of Mariana Trench. He always talks about like, oh, like I have like my onstage persona, and then I'm not that crazy in person, or
Right. Right.
to I guess keep some sort of mystique. But then again, like you see him live streaming on his Instagram a lot more. Um, it's interesting. Like I don't know where that balance is yet.
I don't know if there is one. I mean, there might be just this blurred mess
Yeah,
that is what's happening now.
and I know the people, a couple like peers and friends of mine who will do like, oh, like this is my personal Instagram account, this is my musician Instagram account.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah.
That's I don't know, like that's I just have one Instagram account really. For me, like Dane Bjornson is Dane Bjornson. That's
Yeah.
kind of where it all is. Um, but again, yeah, it's just finding that line, I guess, eh?
Yeah, whether there's a way to separate it or not, I don't know if there is at this point. I think we're too far gone that now everyone's lives is their persona online, and it's just the way it is.
Well, again, I being on TikTok, like the government has it all on me now. Like they know everything.
Yeah,
It's all out there.
yeah, yeah. Well, actually, I think that's I keep waiting for this. Like, we're going to get to a point in the not too distant future where every single person running for office in every election has some kind of embarrassing TikTok or
Oh, I
MySpace or
know.
YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and it's all
Yeah.
going to come up, and there's not going to be anyone exempt because you get people who are your age, between your age and my age even, and they've had even me. I've had like decade and a half of social media has existed basically, and maybe more. And so I mean, I've said dumb stuff. I'm sure if I ever ran for whatever, someone could easily dig through and find. They could listen to this
Oh
show
yeah.
and find me saying some really ridiculous, idiotic ideas, and then put that in a loop and play it, and I would lose. And we're getting
I
to a point
just
where everyone's going to be that.
yeah. I find it so ridiculous when was it like that whole Kevin Hart scenario? He's trying to host the Emmys and he
Right.
said something a little controversial. It's like, yeah, but that was like what, 8 years ago? Do you think I'm that same person? It's just it's a snapshot in time, but those snapshots are in a photo album that we call Facebook and
They
Twitter
are. Yeah.
and Instagram. It's wild. I don't know. My parents were like smart enough to monitor my social media use
Yeah.
like for the
Yeah.
first until they were like, oh, okay, you're a capable human being now.
Yeah.
Uh,
I do that with my kids too. My kids use very little social media,
oh,
but
oh,
I mean they
definitely.
have extremely limited people they can talk to, and I check what they're doing and stuff. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Hmm.
not that there's anything bad with people saying dumb stuff when they're young, because it happens. But I just think it's funny that we're going to end up in a point where suddenly every single notable person ever has said something offensive or dumb or something they regret on social media at one point or another, and it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun to watch.
Well, rather you run for political office or just like are on a dating app or someone. It's like, oh yeah, I'm
Right?
gonna go on a date with this person. Wait, what person? Well, did you know that
Yeah, yeah.
2020 they were on a podcast?
And they said this. Yeah, yeah. For sure. So if people are hearing about you for the first time on this show and they want to find out more about, obviously there's no live stuff happening right now, but they want to check out your music, find out what you do have coming up in the future, what's the best option for them?
Yeah. Well, I've got tons and tons of stuff on social media, and I've just been content creating like crazy. But my YouTube channel is very very dense. There's a lot of things there, and like I was talking about, if you're listening along here, the progression. If you want to see kind of the progression of me, I'm personally proud of like everything, maybe like 2017 and on. But
Okay.
it's all up there. You listen. But yeah, I've got a YouTube channel, Dane Bjornson Music, everywhere on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, just at Dane Bjornson.
Okay.
I've also got a website, danebjornson.com, where there's some fun stuff as well. And I guess there is a little virtual concert series coming up that I should do a little plug for. I'm just gonna
Sure.
pull
Yeah, go for
up
it.
exactly what that is. But it's a friend of mine from Humber named Harrison King, and he's putting together a Harrison King and Friends Home for the Holidays. It's a free virtual concert.
Cool.
It's taking place December 19th at 7 p.m. Central Time. So I guess that's Winnipeg
That's
time.
where we are. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
7 p.m. 6 p.m. I guess I don't gotta say anymore. That's 6 p.m. for me, but
Right, but
I'll be
7
home
for
for
Winnipeg.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is there info
And
about that on your website or anything? Like, so people can check that out?
you know what? I'm gonna put that info on the website by the time the podcast is
Right
up
on,
for
right
here.
on. Yeah,
I've
cool,
got the
cool.
bands in town thing on the shows, and it's like, oh, there's no shows, but I guess that's a show.
It's a show.
So
It's
yeah,
a show. Yeah,
but
cool, cool.
that's happening. I know Maria Aragon's gonna be part of it as well.
Okay. Cool.
She's pretty Winnipeg famous there, so be sure to come check it out. December 19th, if it's out by then, I suppose.
I think
Maybe.
it will be. Yeah, this
Cool,
should be
cool.
up by then. Yeah. So the actual album itself, where can people find that?
Yeah, you can find that Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Deezer, Amazon Music,
Every one of
basically
those things.
everywhere.
Yeah.
There's no physical copies yet. Yeah, every one of those streaming platforms. There's no physical copies yet, but I am hoping to print some CDs by the time live music is allowed again, and I will
Awesome.
probably always have some on me at that point.
That's great. Yeah, glad to hear it. As someone who only listens to physical music and has not got into the whole Spotify and all that stuff yet, I'm always happy to hear that people are putting out CDs or tapes or records because there's this dwindling audience for it, but we still exist.
And it's just something about it, just having it in your hand as well.
There
Like
is.
I know whenever I go to a concert, and they have CDs at the merch table, like I just have to, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still a little like I'm still holding on to analog technology. I have a VHS player out here
Right on.
that my auntie Cindy gave me. She was just cleaning out the garage. She was like, "You want this?" And I was like, "Yeah." So now I got some classics: Ferris Bueller,
Nice.
Jaws 4, The Revenge. This time it's personal, which is
That's the worst of the four, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I found it at a VHS or a thrift store, and I was like, I think I need to have this.
Right on. Well, yeah. Again, like hopefully, this pandemic ends relatively soon, and you can get back and play shows in Winnipeg at some point in the foreseeable future. That would be nice. And yeah, I mean, it's so up in the air right now, but glad to hear you're still,
Mhm.
first of all, keeping in touch with Winnipeg music scene, even though you're out there in Alberta, and still obviously working on making music and getting the word out, and trying to find creative ways to get your stuff heard.
Yeah, thank you. I hope to be performing somewhere sometime soon, and yeah.
Right on.